you're interested in a rules-light role-playing game experience, this is not the game for you. CNS Second Edition is concerned with detail, it's concerned with flavour, and it's concerned with situating your character in a feudal, medieval setting. The game is also, in the words of one of its fans, a glorious mess. He's referring to its vagaries and its inconsistencies, which I suspect accounts for why, back in the day, many players, myself included, never quite got to grips with how to play the game rules as written. But fortunately these days, thanks to the internet, I was able to reach out to veterans and aficionados of the game in order to put this video together outlining how to go about character generation rules as written. So before proceeding, I'd just like to take a moment to thank them, in particular Rupert on RPGNet, Joe Talisa, and Shane of the Brisbane CNS Second Edition Facebook group, without whom I simply would not have been able to put this video together. So, having said all of that, let's get on with it. According to CNS, a character's fate is written in the stars. As such, having decided to roll up a male human character, the character generation process begins with rolling 1d100 to establish the character's birth sign, and then another 1d100 to determine the character's omens at birth. My character turned out to be an Aries, and the omens indicated a highly auspicious birth. The birth sign and omens are then compared against the vocations open to the character. To interpret the chart, I need to take a step back and explain that CNS Second Edition handles character progression in the traditional way, meaning characters go up levels, and those levels are purchased using experience points that are awarded by the Game Master. The figures on the chart are called astrological bonuses, and they represent the modification as a percentage to experience point awards. In other words, if an Aries with a highly auspicious birth becomes a cleric, he gets to increase every experience point award he receives by 5%. As such, what the horoscope chart shows is that a well-aspected Aries is particularly well suited to being a thief or a merchant, given that if he takes up these vocations, he gets to increase every experience point award by 25%. But the chart also shows that they don't make bad fighters either, and since a fighter was my preference, that's the vocation I chose for my character, despite the thief and merchant vocations offering the better astrological bonus. Wait, let's just stop the tape and address a question that I suspect is on the minds of some of the viewers out there, and that is, what happens if what's written in the stars doesn't line up with what the player has in mind for his character? Well, the rules recommend players avoid this situation by rolling not one, but several characters, as many as 4 or 5. In that way, each player has a portfolio of characters populating the game world and a roster of characters from which to choose for any given scenario. The same approach also ensures that the player has a backup character in the event they need one. So, with that clarification out of the way, let's get back to the process. In the next step, we establish the character's place in the feudal pecking order. This crucial consideration is determined by rolling 1d100 to establish the social class of the character's father. Thanks to a high roll, my character was born into the family of a knight, an outcome that, contrary to what you might assume for a game called Chivalry and Sorcery, is actually quite a rare result, given it's far more likely your character's father will be a serf, a yeoman, a townsman, or a guildsman. My next D100 roll established that my character is the youngest of 4 siblings. A roll on the family status table then established that he's a credit to the family, which means that while my character has fulfilled all expectations and is welcome at the family home, for some reason he must still leave to seek his fortune in the world. I then rolled 1d6 for each sibling. Depending on whether the result is even or odd establishes if the sibling is male or female. Through this process, and with feudal custom and specifically patrilineal primogeniture in mind, I established that my character is second in line to inherit his father's estate. As for the size of that estate, a roll on the chivalric class table established that my character's father is the lord of a significant holding, one that includes a castle, direct revenues and rental income from 225 square miles of land, and additional rental income from 395 more square miles of land, overseen by 5 feudal vassals, each one based in his own manor. In other words, my character belonged to a very high status family, one only outranked in the feudal hierarchy by aristocrats and royalty. In the next step, we establish how many points we have to spend on the character's prime requisites. This is determined by rolling 2d6, multiplying the result by 10, adding 50, and in the case of well-aspected characters like mine, the points total is then increased by an additional 10%. As for how to go about spending the points, Each prime requisite costs 1 point to increase by 1 level up to level 16. Thereafter they cost 2 points to increase per level, except for piety, which has a cost that depends upon your character's vocation. In the case of non-clerics like my character, that cost is 1 point per level. Having purchased the character's prime requisites, a number of secondary attributes are then established, either by rolling on tables or by deriving them from prime requisites. These include height, weight, frame, carry capacity, charisma, body levels, which are essentially hit points, fatigue levels, which are a measure of your character's capacity for sustained exertion, and the recovery rates for both body and fatigue levels. The character's military ability is also established during this stage. This stat is used to establish his prowess in individual combat, which is referred to as his personal combat factor. Military ability is also used to determine your character's command level, a stat used by the accompanying mass combat system. Next, we determine how experienced the character is upon entering the game, because in CNS, characters don't necessarily start as green level 1 characters. The total experience amassed by the character upon entering the game is established by rolling on the experience points accumulated during non-play table. Which column on that table is used depends upon your character's aspects of birth experience bonus, which, for my character, meant I rolled on the good aspect plus 10 column. As a result of my roll, my character entered the game at 23 years old and with 91,400 experience points to spend, which was enough experience points to attain level 7 and have 16,400 experience points left over. The surplus points are saved to attain the next level, or, since skills are purchased using experience points, they can also be used to acquire skills, with the caveat that a character cannot attain a level in a skill that is higher than his own level. As for how skills are acquired, there is no single approach. For example, some skills are acquired automatically because they are considered universal or because they come for free as part of the character's social class or vocation. Meanwhile, other skills have a flat experience point cost to acquire per level. Then there are skills with more complex rules governing their acquisition. For example, depending upon the character's class, he can designate a certain number of weapons as favoured. Such weapons can be used without penalty. The cost to acquire an additional favoured weapon depends upon the character's class and must be paid for 3 consecutive levels. The character must also pay an additional one-off experience point cost equal to the level he begins to learn the new favoured weapon times 100. For example, if a knight decided to learn an additional favoured weapon at level 9, he would have to spend a one-off 900 experience point cost due to his level, plus the 1000 experience point cost based upon his vocation for 3 levels, equaling a total of 3,900 experience points. But for the most arcane of all CNS's skill acquisition rules, you need look no further than the rules governing the acquisition of food preparation skills. There are 9 of them, plus haute cuisine, which refers to a general level of proficiency in all 9 food preparation skills. In case you're wondering, the intent behind these rules appears to be to bring camping scenes to life, but also to provide a motive for retaining skilled servants. As for the extra skills I picked up for my character, I decided to purchase a few skills to ensure that, like the archetypal courtly knight, he could play a musical instrument, dance with a lady at court, and, in the event he got injured, staunch a bleeding wound. The next step involves the GM and player collaborating to decide what the character was doing to earn a living prior to entering the game, informed by his level, background, and birth omens. In the case of a knight, it's important to know that according to the rules, a knight begins as a squire, which is to say a knight in training, up until level 7, at which point he finally becomes a knight. This led us to conclude that my character began working as a mercenary squire at arms before being promoted to a mercenary knight errant, which allowed us to determine, thanks to the inclusion of the guild vocation table, that he had achieved a surplus income after living expenses of 225 silver pieces per month. Armed with this information and the character's age upon entering the game, I was then able to use the rules on accumulated savings to answer the crucial question of how much money my character had to spend upon entering the game. Finally, having determined that figure, I made use of CNS's extensive and highly detailed marketplace chapter to kit my character out for life as an adventurer. And with that, this outlining of the CNS Second Edition character generation process is complete. Before leaving you with the character sheet, let me just take a moment to point out that down in the comments, you'll find a link to a thread running on the RPGNet forums in which you'll find many more clarifications of the process, including clarifications of the infamous rules governing the acquisition of food preparation skills. You'll also find my affiliate link to the latest version of CNS, the 5th edition by Britannia Games. And all that remains now is to thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content. And for now, I wish you farewell.